There's something you can bury in your backyard that repels mosquitoes, flies, and gnats without spending a dime. No spray, no chemicals, no batteries, just two pieces of wire and damp soil. And the strangest part? This isn't some new discovery. It's a technique European farmers used over 150 years ago. It worked perfectly, and it vanished from the map right around the time the pesticide industry showed up. If you're new here, this is Survival Secrets. Hit subscribe and the bell so you don't miss what the industry doesn't want you to know. Today I'm going to show you exactly how it works, why it works, and how to build one yourself this afternoon for less than $5 at any hardware store. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is an earth battery? When you put two different metals in contact with an electrolyte, they react differently with each other. One gives up electrons more easily than the other. That difference in behavior creates an electrical current. That's a battery. You don't need sulfuric acid or anything exotic. You just need two metals that are different enough from each other and something that conducts electricity between them. Damp soil does exactly that. Water in the ground contains dissolved minerals, salts, and ions in motion. When you bury copper and zinc together in that soil, the moisture acts as the electrolyte, the two metals react with each other, and the system generates a real, measurable electrical current. Alexander Bain measured it in 1841 in Scotland, nearly 1 full volt, coming from nothing but wet earth and two metal plates. He powered a clock with that current for months. So what does that have to do with mosquitoes? Insects are extremely sensitive to electric and electromagnetic fields. Their nervous systems, antennae, and sensory receptors are tuned to detect very weak electrical signals. That's part of how they navigate, find food, and sense danger. When there's an active current in the soil, many insects pick it up as an alarm signal and move away. It doesn't kill them. It disorients them, makes them uncomfortable, and drives them out of the area. That's exactly what the French scientist Abbé Nollet observed in Paris in 1747, when he noticed that the flies in his laboratory avoided the container that had an electrical current running through it. He published the observation in 1749. Nobody paid much attention for decades because there was no obvious practical application. But a century later, when Bain built his earth battery in Scotland, farmers in the area started noticing something. The zones around the buried batteries had fewer insects, fewer flies, fewer pests attacking the crops. In 1845, a Scottish farmer named Robert Forrester installed the system in his barley fields near Elgin and documented the results in a publication called The British Cultivator. Pest damage dropped to nearly zero. No aphids, no beetles, no flies swarming the work area at dusk. He described something like an invisible perimeter that insects simply wouldn't cross. In the 1920s, European agricultural technicians installed versions of the system in oat fields with copper and zinc antennas raised on posts above the crops. Harvests grew without additional fertilizers. Fields stayed pest-free without any chemical products. One of the technicians wrote directly, "The current destroys all insects that attack the plants." In 1912, an international conference presented the accumulated evidence. The consensus was clear. The system worked. And then World War I hit. It destroyed the agricultural fields of northern France and wiped out decades of practical knowledge. After the war, reconstruction needed fast results, and synthetic pesticides arrived, delivering visible results immediately, manufacturable at scale, bottled, distributed, and sold season after season. DDT was developed by the United States military in 1944 for jungle warfare, not for backyard cookouts, not for camping trips. But by 1957, it was being marketed for home use, and within a single generation, 270 years of knowledge about the earth battery was buried under a $5 billion a year industry. They didn't discredit it. They didn't prove it didn't work. They simply made it disappear from the manuals, from agricultural schools, from gardening books. And they replaced it with something that sells, runs out, and has to be repurchased every single season. Today, 82% of the repellents sold in the United States are synthetic chemical compounds. Even the natural alternatives are designed to run out fast. Citronella candles that burn down, essential oils that evaporate in hours, repellent bracelets that lose effectiveness in a day. The entire system is built around repeat purchases. The earth battery breaks that model completely. It costs $5 once. Rain recharges it. It needs no replacement. And that makes it completely incompatible with any business model built on recurring sales. You can't patent two metals buried in dirt. You can't build a brand around soil voltage. You can't charge a subscription for moisture. That's exactly why you've never seen it in a commercial. Now let's get practical. Here's what you need, how you build it, and why every step matters. To build one stake, you need 3 materials you can find at any hardware store. Bare copper wire, 14 gauge, galvanized wire with zinc coating, same 14 gauge, and a wooden or bamboo stake about 36 inches long. Everything together costs you under $5, and that one purchase gives you enough to make 3 or 4 complete stakes. Copper and zinc are the two metals that form the battery. They're different enough in their electrochemical behavior to generate a real voltage difference when they're in contact with an electrolyte. Copper tends to gain electrons. Zinc tends to give them up. That sustained difference is what creates the current. If you use 2 pieces of the same metal, nothing would happen. The specific combination of copper and zinc is what makes the system work. Take about 36 inches of copper wire and coil it in a spiral around the stake starting from the bottom, winding upward with each loop about 1.5 inches apart. If you're in the northern hemisphere, wind it clockwise. It's not superstition. It has to do with how the spiral interacts with Earth's magnetic field in each hemisphere, though for practical purposes, the most important thing is simply that both wires are tightly coiled and making contact with the soil. Then do exactly the same thing with the galvanized wire. 2 spirals, 2 metals, on the same stake. Both need to reach all the way down to the bottom end of the stake, the end you're going to drive into the ground, so that both metals are in contact with the soil when you install it. Drive the stake at least 6 inches into the ground. Deeper is better, because deeper soil holds moisture longer and the electrochemical reaction stays more stable. And here's the most important point in the entire process. The soil has to be moist. Without moisture, there's no electrolyte. Without an electrolyte, there's no reaction between the metals. Without a reaction, there's no current, no field, no effect. If the soil is dry, pour water around the base before driving the stake in. A good initial soak is enough to activate the system. After that, every time it rains or you water the area, the system recharges itself. In dry climates or during a hot summer, you may need to water the base every week or 10 days to keep it active. Over time, you'll learn to recognize when it's working and when the soil has dried out too much. To protect a specific area, whether that's a porch, an outdoor dining area, a corner of the vegetable garden where you spend time, or a campsite, build 3 stakes and place them in a triangle around the zone you want to protect. One near where you typically sit, one about 12 feet away on a diagonal, the third closing the triangle. Each stake covers roughly 200 square feet. 3 stakes in a triangle protect between 400 and 600 square feet, depending on the spacing. The triangle doesn't need to be perfect, and the measurements don't need to be exact. What matters is that they surround the activity zone from 3 different points to create a more uniform field. For standing water, the approach is different and even more direct. Standing water is where mosquitoes reproduce. That's where they lay eggs, where the larvae grow, where the next generation of mosquitoes is born before they come after you that evening. If you eliminate the larvae before they reach adulthood, you cut the cycle at the source. For that, you drop a piece of bare copper wire directly into the container with standing water. It could be a plant pot with a water-collecting saucer, a forgotten bucket in the yard, a decorative fountain without circulation, a puddle that takes a long time to drain. Anywhere there's standing water, drop in copper. Copper dissolves slowly into the water in very small amounts. Those copper traces are enough to kill mosquito larvae before they reach adulthood, but they're well below any level that's dangerous for people, pets, or plants. A 2015 study from the University of Heidelberg tested this with 2 mosquito species common in Europe, Culex pipiens and Culex occitanus, and found 100% larval mortality within 14 days. The copper concentration needed for that result is less than 1 part per million. That's 4 times below the limit the World Health Organization sets as safe for drinking water. You could drink the water that's killing the mosquitoes and absolutely nothing would happen to you. 14 days, 100% larval mortality, with a piece of copper wire sitting in the water. Compare that to a standard spray from the drugstore. It costs $10 to $12. It lasts 2 to 4 hours. It has documented side effects with continued use, including skin irritation, agitation, and in cases of excessive exposure, neurological effects. It dissolves certain plastics on direct contact, and you have to buy it again on your next run to the store. The Earth battery costs $5 once and lasts the entire season. Now, being completely straight with you, because that's what this channel is about. There's an important distinction between what's proven by modern controlled studies and what has solid historical evidence but no contemporary research. What is confirmed beyond any doubt is this: copper kills mosquito larvae in standing water, documented in multiple peer-reviewed studies across several countries. Copper repels slugs and snails, documented in the Crop Protection Journal with 80% barrier effectiveness. And the electrochemical reaction between copper and zinc in moist soil generates measurable voltage. That's freshman chemistry. What has extensive historical evidence but still no modern controlled studies is whether the electric field generated by the buried spirals actively repels flying insects at a distance. The historical evidence from European farmers is consistent and spans nearly a century of use, but the modern controlled trials haven't been done. Why haven't they been done? Because nobody funds research into something that costs $2 and can't be patented. That's not a conspiracy. That's just the logic of money in applied research. Studies get funded when there's a product to sell at the end. No product, no funding. No funding, no studies. The absence of modern research doesn't prove it doesn't work. It proves that nobody has a financial reason to prove that it does. So here's what you actually have: a technique with a real electrochemical foundation, solid historical evidence spanning more than a century, scientifically proven results for the specific case of standing water, and a $5 cost that doesn't benefit any company. Try it. Drop the copper wire into your plant saucers this week. Build 3 stakes for the porch or the part of the yard where mosquitoes bother you most. Let the rain recharge the system. And in 2 weeks, tell me in the comments what difference you noticed. If this video opened your eyes, share it right now with someone who spends every summer scratching. Subscribe to Survival Secrets if you haven't yet, and hit the bell, because we keep uncovering what the industry would prefer you never found out. See you next time.